Good morning, Digit fam. Adam Dowd here, flipping the calendar page once again for a new dose of tech and geekery. And yes, I will actually flip the calendar page this time. What can I say? Dates are hard. It's March 5th, 2019, and this is your Digit Daily. Sony has long been the gold standard in photography, both in DSLR cameras and in smartphones, but curiously, not in Sony's smartphones. Here on the Digit Daily, we've talked about several smartphones that have launched with 48 megapixel cameras, smartphones like the Honor View 20 and the Redmi Note 7, both of which sport Sony IMX586 sensors with a whopping 48 megapixels of camera. Sony has made the camera sensors for most smartphone manufacturers, including Apple, Samsung, LG, Huawei, you name it, they've used a Sony sensor. These cameras are super good, but you know whose smartphone cameras have historically not been super good? Sony's. Wait, what? Did you fact check this? Keep reading? Okay. Trusted Reviews had a chat with Sony's senior manager of global marketing, Adam Marsh, who revealed that Sony's children don't always play nice with each other. Specifically, Sony's Alpha mirrorless camera division, and BT Dubs, congrats on having the cojones to call your division the Alpha division, and then actually turning out to be the best. Love that. But it turns out the Alpha division didn't want to help the Xperia camera division. Why? Well, suddenly your $800 smartphone can do the same thing as your $3,000 camera, and Alpha didn't want to undercut its own product. So instead, it undercut Xperia's product. Did I mention that both of these are in the same company? Now, that barrier is gone, so the Alpha team will invite Xperia into the pool, which is nice. They've realized that having a smartphone and a camera that both provide you the same experience can be a good thing. Aww, isn't it nice that everything's so nice now? So, of course, the Xperia One must be using Sony's new IMX586 sensor and destroying the competition, right? Well, no. And here's the fun part. Sony is going with a triple 12 megapixel camera setup instead. But I thought everything was hunky-dory again. Oh, it is! Sony just realizes that having three 12 megapixel sensors is better than having a single 48 megapixel camera module. The 48 megapixel sensor isn't memory stacked, so it can't do things like 960 FPS super slow-mo. But what that means is that Sony will happily sell you its 48 megapixel sensor to put in your phone, but it won't use it in their own. I mean, come on, that really doesn't look good. No pun intended. But in the meantime, the Honors and the Redmis can mine the hell out of that 48 megapixel marketing gold, and Sony will just go ahead and take the most amazing photos in the world. Seriously though, the reviews aren't out for the Xperia One, so we don't know if this actually is true or not. Sony just thinks it is. And regarding its smartphone sales, which Sony has never really sold a hell of a lot of outside of Japan, Marsh had this to say, quote, "Sony as a brand is not going to appeal to everybody. We're not a Samsung, we're not a Huawei. But what we will appeal to is people who want quality products where they are able to take amazing pictures or a video or do something different. Our key USPs will be the screen and the camera. The screen thanks to Bravia, the camera thanks to Alpha. Competitors have different USPs which may attract certain customers, but for us, people who know their photography and people who want to buy into that Sony ecosystem of interchangeable lenses will buy an Xperia One." Whatever you want to say about this story, it's a fascinating look at Sony culture and generally how they don't give a about what anyone else thinks, even within its own company. I don't know about you, but I'm about ready to move on to the roundup! Oppo announced the Oppo F11 Pro, which sports, well, hey, what do you know? A 48 megapixel camera, and a 16 megapixel pop-up selfie camera, a headphone jack, and a micro USB port. Hey, did you fact check? All right! Anyway, yeah, a micro USB port in 2019. Well, that's not surprising since Oppo was stupid enough to use a 48 megapixel camera sensor because, you know, the memory isn't stacked, so you can't, well, you know. The USB Implementers Forum, which by the way is a terrible name, announced the upcoming release of USB 4, which is capable of super fast speeds and power transfer and Thunderbolt 3.0. This comes relatively hot on the heels of USB 3.2, so it's a little confusing. Plus, there's no space between USB and 4, which frankly bugs me, mostly because I know that I will screw that up and never hear the end of it from commenters. I mean, I know, I love my listeners and my readers, but man, sometimes commenters can be brutal, and this is coming from a white male. Elon Musk announced to the world that he'd be closing most Tesla retail stores. The only thing is, he forgot to tell the people working in Tesla's retail stores. They found out about it from Tesla's blog, which is terrible and surprising, but I think what's most surprising is that Tesla's retail store employees read Tesla's blog. And since we promised to keep you up to date on the Geneva Motor Show, and speaking of horrible names, we have the X3 xDrive 30e plug-in hybrid vehicle from BMW, which gets 31 miles on battery before switching to gas. We also have a Mercedes MPV minivan with an impressive 250 miles of range. And Goodyear is pimping a new kind of tire that serves as a propeller for self-flying cars. The future is getting closer and closer, folks. It's just a question of whether or not you want to sit in it and let it fly you around. Jibo was a cute little social robot that was designed to be a companion of sorts, but it was pretty limited in its functionality and third-party developer support. That led to the company going under, as startups tend to do, and the servers are now being shut down. None of that is particularly notable, though. What is notable is that Jibo was able to tell its owners that itself. Hello, human. I'm about to be bricked. Have a nice day. Thanks for the money, suckers! And finally, a London man who underwent a bone marrow transplant with a donor who was resistant to the HIV infection has become the second man in the world to be functionally cured of HIV. Previously thought to be incurable, this marks a significant landmark in the fight against HIV, which affects 37 million people worldwide. But this isn't a cure, it's a very risky and expensive procedure. But doctors hope that it'll lead to new ways to treat the infection, so yes, boys and girls, you still need to implement safe practices, which is about as delicately as I can phrase it. So before this gets any more awkward, that is going to do it for today's Digit Daily. If you'd like to learn more about any of these stories, check out the links in the show notes and subscribe to our daily newsletter on Digit.com. And if you like what you heard, subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. Once again, I'm Adam Dowd, Dead Technology on Twitter, and we'll talk again tomorrow.